Hey there, welcome to Classic Movie Gush number 18. Sticking with the Christmas season. Tonight we have a movie, a little bit off the beaten path perhaps, but surprisingly well known, at least by some movie connoisseurs. And the film tonight is Christmas in Connecticut. Now, there are some interesting things about this movie, a romantic comedy from, I think, 1945. I don't know if I looked at the year.
1945.
1945. And a little bit later, we are going to tell you how this movie literally changed Melissa Tagg's life. But it's true. It's true. There's a big personal connection. We'll get to that later. But first of all, Melissa Tagg, my co-pilot in classic movie gushing. Or wait, no, there were sailors in the movie, so I should have a.
What's a co-sailor?
They were naval. Yeah, co-pilot. Well,
a co-boat driver.
Yeah, that's right. My co-boat driver. This is seamless. You tell the good folks on the internet, what is Christmas in Connecticut about?
Sure, I can do that. So Christmas in Connecticut has Barbara Stanwyck in it, and in it she plays a journalist. She actually has a column for a magazine. She writes about good housekeeping type stuff, about cooking and her perfect house and her perfect life, and her husband and her kid and their Connecticut farm. Only problem is none of that actually exists. She is faking it all just to make money with this column, and it's a very popular column, and she's getting away with a lie basically until a guy who is a sailor gets back from being lost at sea, and he's kind of a hero. He decides that he wants to have, well, actually, a nurse decides that he should have a really good home-cooked meal on Christmas and just a good down-home family Christmas. So she writes to the publisher of this magazine and says, can you give this sailor a great Christmas with Barbara Stanwyck, who everybody knows as like a Martha Stewart type. And so Barbara Stanwyck kind of panics, and she basically has to come up with her Connecticut farm and her fake husband and a baby, basically to put on an act for this sailor. And it's all going to work out just great. There's even a guy that actually does want to marry her. She doesn't want to really marry him, but she's going to go through with it just to save her career. The only problem is as soon as the sailor shows up, it's kind of love at first sight. She falls for the sailor. So what does she do? She's trapped in a pretend marriage, but she likes the sailor. So, yeah, that's kind of the story.
That is a great job. As you mentioned, Elizabeth Lane, I think, is the fake... No, that's her name in the movie. She's played by Barbara Stanwyck.
Yep.
Now, we met Barbara Stanwyck, as have most people, through Double Indemnity.
Right.
And it's really cool. I had not seen her in very much. I mean, I definitely knew Double Indemnity. So to see her take on a romantic comedy role, when she played that noir thing so well. She was Phyllis Dietrichson, right, opposite Fred McMurray, and she's so devious in that other film.
And she has bad hair in that film too.
She does, and so in this film, she still has the great voice, but she's also very playful and sneaky, and we'll get back to how it's a little risque.
It is actually.
If you're paying attention to what is happening in the storyline, it is risque. Especially for 1945. And the lead character, you mentioned him, the war hero Jones. He's played by Dennis Morgan.
Right.
As soon as the movie started, for some reason I was thinking, well, Dennis Morgan, he's super famous, and I couldn't figure out what I had seen him in though, and it was driving me crazy. I started looking at his resume, and it wasn't like filled. He doesn't have like
he doesn't.
This might be his most famous movie actually, Christmas in Connecticut. And it finally occurred to me why I recognized him so much. He was in a movie I saw once called Wings for the Eagle. It's a 1942 movie. Now, you know how if you go on Wikipedia, like every single thing you can click on, like any proper noun, you can click on it because there's an entry. Wings for the Eagle is a pretty main movie from 1942. It doesn't even have a Wikipedia entry. Like
really?
I need to write it.
You should do it.
The supporting actor opposite him is Jack Carson, who we met in
Yeah.
Arsenic and Old Lace as the cop. So that's why I recognize Jack Carson so much. So that weird obscure movie finally unlocked why I recognize Dennis
Yeah.
Morgan so much.
They were actually in several movies together. So
Morgan and Carson?
yeah, they were kind of acting buddies. They were in like a movie called Two Guys from Milwaukee, and another one called Two Guys from Texas, I think. Two
Really
guys from
creative
somewhere
titles.
else. Yeah.
There's a couple other buddies in this movie we should mention, a couple of Casablanca buddies.
Yeah.
Sidney Greenstreet, who played
Uh-huh.
Ferrari in Casablanca. He plays
Yep.
Alexander Yardley, a real key character in this one, as is Felix, played by S.Z. Sakal. He was Carl. He was the maitre d' at Rick's
Casablanca.
Cafe Americain. So they're back in kind of some zany screwball. At least Felix is screwball-y.
He's really funny. I love him in this movie.
And Alexander Yardley is a pretty important part of the whole plot and why she has to go to these lengths. So explain what's going on there. Who is he again?
So he is the head of the magazine she writes for. I think he's the publisher. And he doesn't know that she's faked this column that she writes, and he comes for Christmas as well. So she's having to keep up the lie in front of him while she's keeping it up in front of everybody else.
Yeah. And you mentioned that she was willing to marry Sloane. He had the idyllic, at least, picture of the life that she needed to represent. And they were supposed to pull off this quick marriage as soon as they got there.
Right.
But there's constantly things holding it up. Some of them by chance, some of them intentional by Uncle Felix, or the guy who's playing her, Uncle Felix. And the judge is Judge Crothers. And he's played by a guy named Dick Elliott. Now, I was watching the movie, and this judge comes in and out a few times, and he kind of seemed familiar, but then there was, I think, his last scene in the movie. He said something, and as soon as I heard his voice, I knew exactly
who he was.
Who was it?
The guy from It's a Wonderful Life. If you've seen It's a Wonderful Life, there's a guy on a front porch, and he just has like 2 lines in the whole movie, but all he says is something like,
"You just wasted on the wrong people."
He says that, and he's like, "Stop hemming and hawing and just kiss her already." I think that's his other big line.
Yeah.
It's that guy. So
It is. The old man on the porch.
Yeah, he has a bigger role in this movie, but he's probably way more well known for It's a Wonderful Life, just for those 2 lines. But
so that's essentially the main cast of characters. There is a housemaid who is very funny. She is
funny.
I'm forgetting her name. Ula?
I don't remember her name, but she's funny.
She just had that really sharp Irish accent and that expressive face. She was real fun.
And she fights with Felix. They don't really like each other.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Now this film, Christmas in Connecticut, is not one that typically will be rolled out as often as It's a Wonderful Life or some of the others that we've talked about. But I was actually surprised because now you and I are big fans of Robert Osborne. He is like Mr. TCM, right? I just love listening to that guy talk about any part of movies is fascinating.
Right.
Did you know that this is one of his favorite movies ever?
No, that's so great. Good job, Robert Osborne.
Yeah, this surprised me. Now, he was asked a couple years ago what his favorite Christmas film was. I thought for sure he would say It's a Wonderful Life.
Because who doesn't say It's a Wonderful Life?
Right. He actually said that his favorite Christmas film is The Shop Around the Corner.
Oh, that's
which is, I haven't seen it. I think it's another Jimmy Stewart one, right?
Yep.
That's 1940.
Yeah, it's what the movie You've Got Mail is based on.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. That's what she called it, The Shop Around the Corner. That makes sense. And Osborne said, my second favorite Christmas movie is Christmas in Connecticut. And he said this, that back in 1945, obviously they didn't have like a big promotional rollout schedule, and they didn't have television spots and television. So in order to get a movie like this going, you had to have word of mouth in effect by the time the Christmas season came out. So they actually released Christmas in Connecticut in July or August in New York City. And they were hoping that by 3 or 4 months later, enough people would know about it that when it was actually the appropriate time for the film, people would go.
That's sweet. I like that.
That's so cool.
Smart people.
I love that Hollywood had to so thoroughly rely. I mean, word of mouth is always the thing. Any publicity person will tell you that. But I just love the idea that Hollywood in 1945 had to go that route. Like, that was it. We just have to get a 4-month head start here and see if this works.
Yeah. Nice job, Hollywood. It's funny, though, how not as well known this movie is, though, because you'd think, I mean, it's just got such a funny storyline, and it's different. It's a great one for people who maybe aren't into musicals. It's not quite as cheesy as some Christmas movies. So I don't know. I would think more people would know about it, but it's a great one. Random, total side note. Did you know that the house they use in it is the same house they use in Bringing Up Baby? It's the, like, Connecticut farm or whatever. Yep.
Oh, where they're having the big dinner table scene. That's funny.
Yep.
They tended to use sets as often as possible back then. We also should point out that there was a remake. Matter of fact, Robert Osborne talked about how horrible Arnold Schwarzenegger directs a remake of Christmas in Connecticut, and Barbara Stanwyck is like one of the great actresses of all time, and I'll never watch the remake. Everybody says it's just horrible. It was not good.
I think the only reason to watch a movie like that would be to make fun of it. I mean, that could be kind of fun, but yeah.
Now, before we get to your personal connection, let's talk about the babies.
The babies, yes.
So, if you pretend that you have this life where you need to be married and have a baby, it can be interesting when you have to come up with those children when everybody's watching you. So it turns out that the housekeeper, there's a couple of ladies next door who work at the plant. They're Rosie the Riveters, basically, and they go off to work at the factory, and the housemaid takes care of the babies. So while it is true that part of the comedic plot twist is that one lady drops off the baby one day and a different one the next day, so that they're trying to figure out who her real baby is, and there's a girl and a boy.
Yeah.
You had some observations about this.
Well, it's just stupid. Okay, let's just go down the list. First of all, the whole movie, every single person that ever refers to the baby calls it it. They never say he or she. There's a point at which we're supposed to believe that the baby has swallowed a pocket watch, which is kind of unbelievable on its own. And after it swallows the watch, everybody's just like, oh, get some castor oil.
It's so good, though, because it's Sidney Greenstreet who says that. Like, if you know who Ferrari is from Casablanca, he had some comedic timing, and his voice and his like big persona. It's so funny how he just matter-of-factly says, we'll get some castor oil and we'll be done with it.
I know. It's ridiculous. There's another point where the baby is crying, and Dennis Morgan's character is just like, oh, it's because the baby knows it's bath time and it needs its bath. Now I'm calling the baby it. But, like, what baby knows when it's bath time? I'm sorry, everything about the baby is funny to me in this movie. They constantly just leave the baby in a bedroom by itself on a big, like, 4-poster bed. They forget about the baby all the time.
Like, nobody's even watching.
Nobody's
so the
watching
housekeeper, I guess the housekeeper is supposed, even though at one point she's like ready to quit and walk out, right? So, just
she is.
Ignore that. Her, bad on me, I didn't know her name. It's Una O'Connor. The housekeeper's character is Nora. And it is funny. Like, the baby is just like, oh, wait, we need the baby for the plot real quick. So let's bring it in. It's
ridiculous. Yeah, bring it in.
Favorite scene in the movie for you?
Okay, I actually think that my favorite scene in the movie, there's a spot where Barbara Stanwyck's character and Dennis Morgan, they're just like walking outside. I honestly can't even remember what they're doing, but they have really great dialogue in that scene, and they actually have quite a bit of suggestive lines in that scene too. And basically Barbara Stanwyck is kind of baiting Dennis Morgan's character and saying, are you the kind of guy that would flirt with a married woman? But it's funny dialogue. That's probably the one that I get the most kick out of, even though I'm always wondering, like, how did that make it past the censors in the 1940s? But
I'm with you.
I liked it.
If
it
you
was
watch
fun.
it, what they're basically saying is he thinks she's married, and it doesn't matter what she thinks. She's supposed to be married. But, like, when they dance together, when they talk together, She is
Yeah.
so all over him.
She is.
Like not
It's
sure
funny.
how that would have looked, but I guess it's okay because she's not
But she's not
really
really
married.
married. Yeah.
So it just kind of goes with the whole hypocrisy of the Hays Code and what was acceptable and what wasn't.
Exactly.
But it
It's
works.
true.
That's one thing we can say. It definitely
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Dennis Morgan, he did a ton of stuff, right? He was a very well-known actor of his time, and he was certainly able to hang with Stanwyck. So I think those two play well off each other, and it's nice to see a couple different faces, honestly, in a different cast. Now we have to get to what I found very interesting, that this movie actually had some influence in your brain on your craft.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Well, I watched this movie and got the idea for my book.
It was that direct?
Yeah, I was watching. It was okay. I pride myself on loving classic movies and having seen so many of them. But a few years ago, I realized I had never seen this one, and I felt like a failure. So I watched it, and as I watched it, this is what I loved about it. I loved the fake marriage angle, and I loved that for once you have this fake marriage, and the two people don't fall in love with each other. She actually falls in love with somebody else, and so I thought, I love that storyline. I'm gonna steal it, and so I did.
Okay.
And I wrote my own book, kind of copying it a little bit. So.
Your book, by the way, Made to Last, out now
Yes.
at your local bookseller.
Yep, it's true. And my book is a little bit different because it has an architect as the main character rather than a magazine columnist or whatever. She's pretending to be married. So, and she's not really. So she gets herself into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
Good times. So.
You probably have thought about this movie more than most people because it's a big investment of time to write a book.
I have thought about it, but once I got the idea for my book, I actually didn't let myself watch it again until I'd finished writing the book. Because I wanted to take that angle of the story and then write my own story. I didn't want to, there's a lot that goes on in Christmas in Connecticut. There's not a baby in my book, for instance, and my main character never actually intends to marry her fake husband, whereas Barbara Stanwyck really was going to marry her fake husband. Oh, we should mention this. In Christmas in Connecticut, the guy who plays the fake, well, he would have been her husband if their marriage would have happened. It's Reginald Gardner. He's not too well known or anything. He plays an architect in the movie, and he's hilarious because he's such a bore. But in real life, that actor's parents really wanted him to be an architect, and he went against them to become an actor instead. So
interesting.
At least he finally played one in a movie.
He's actually bucking for a position at the magazine.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you not, you don't hate him. You're not looking at Barbara Stanwyck and thinking she's a real terrible person. Everybody's kind of got their own angle, and it makes it very fun.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Reginald Gardner, his most famous role was in The Great Dictator with Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin, yeah. That's cool. My fake husband, though, is not a bore. He's great. So, just throwing that out there.
So, you should read Made to Last by Melissa Tagg. Then you should watch Christmas in Connecticut. That's our second Christmas movie in a row.
It is.
Oh my goodness, it's almost like we're doing a seasonal programming schedule.
What are the chances that we might do a Christmas movie next week?
Now I kind of want to watch the Robert Osborne's favorite movie because everything he says is so smart.
Yeah. Wait, which was his favorite one again?
The Shop Around
the Corner. Oh yeah, that is a good movie.
But I guess we don't get to watch that because you picked something different. But we're not gonna.
we can switch it. Although I really feel that you need to watch the movie that we picked for next, if I'm remembering what we picked next.
Because you know what's gonna happen. Like everybody who reads your website is gonna be like, I can't believe Clay's never seen the movie we're gonna do next. But we're not gonna tell you what movie we're gonna do next. Yeah. But spoiler, it's a really famous one that I haven't seen and quite possibly am going to ridicule.
We can't all have good taste.
That's true. So I will try to come down to the level of those who like certain films. I'll stay up here with Roger Ebert.
I'll hang out with Robert Osborne then.
No, he's
Who did Robert Osborne would probably like my book. We should probably send him a copy of it.
We should. We should.
Yeah.
In the meantime, have you seen Christmas in Connecticut? If not, check it out. And most importantly, she's not going to say it, but I will. Read Made to Last by Melissa Tagg and support this fine artiste. But here's the inspiration from 1945. So in the comments, tell us what your favorite Christmas movie is, and we'll see if anybody happens to pick the one that I'm not looking forward to watching for the first time.
You should look forward to it. You're probably going to love it.
Probably just like the sound of music.